I'm going to strike out on my own and be responsible for my own success and not have all of that in someone else's hands. All of the most important decisions about your career will be made when you're not in the room. I like to say that independent consulting is not for everybody, but it is for anybody with a skill and a will. I did everything and it was overwhelming and I burned out. When I quit my job and put it out there on LinkedIn that I was now an independent consultant and I had a company, the clients didn't come. Just because you're independent doesn't mean you have to go it alone. And a couple of thoughts I had is one, just because it's a hobby and you love doing it doesn't mean it should be a business. That's a great way to kill your hobbies.
Absolutely. Welcome to the Employee to Entrepreneur channel. Please subscribe so every week you get to hear from amazing guests that share their stories and inspiration and motivation to help them in their journey, and hopefully it will inspire you as well in your transition from employee to entrepreneur. Hey everybody, welcome to the Employee to Entrepreneur podcast. I am so excited for today's guest. Today's guest is all about that transition from really corporate to entrepreneurship. But not only has he made that transition, he now helps so many people do the same thing and really excel at it. And I'm so excited to have him on the show today to share how he's helped other people into that entrepreneurial world. We do very similar yet completely different things. And so this is going to be a really fun session for you all. And I hope you're going to grab a notebook because I know he's going to have some really great nuggets for you as well. Dave Seaton, AKA the champion for corporate independent consultants, right?
That's right.
21 years of a corporate life that he has left and now started this incredible ability to help other people in that transition. He's self-employed consultant, entrepreneur, and the founder of Chicken Dinner Club, which we're going to talk all about. It's a growing online community that teaches independent consultants how to attract fun clients, win big media projects, and he's doing it on the social media platform of LinkedIn, which if none of you are very well versed on, you probably should. It's going to be a really important platform as you go forward if you're really focused on your entrepreneurial world. That's where a lot of your clients probably live. Dave, thank you so much for being on today. I really appreciate it.
I am so excited to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
So let's just dive right in. I'd like to hear a little bit about your background and what you did, but what I really want to know is what is that trigger that made you decide? Because a lot of people who listen to this podcast, they're in transition, they're playing in both sandboxes right now. And then, so for us, share what you did in your corporate background, but then what was that trigger that said, you know what, I got to get out. I have to do my own thing.
Yeah, so my corporate background, 21 years in business to business tech companies. And the last decade of that, I was an executive leader. I led professional services. I did business transformations and ultimately led the customer experience transformation for the company that I worked for. Won some big awards, made the company a lot of money. And that was right in the midst of a global pandemic that you
Mm.
may remember.
Yeah.
And coming out of the global pandemic in 2021, several things kind of lined up. The first was remote work. What we're doing right now across the video screen was normalized. The company I worked for had actually been ahead of the game. I had been a fully remote employee since January 2019, but the pandemic really normalized remote work for many companies. The other thing was I had gained a lot of industry reputation, was being invited to speak at a lot of conferences, had won awards, and a lot of the people that I looked up to were independent consultants. Now, I'd always been curious about consulting, but I had never wanted to travel 50 weeks a year.
Correct.
Family time is very important to me. Hobby time is very important. But with this idea of remote work now being normalized and feeling like I was gaining a place, a momentum in this industry, and then finally, the way that my corporate employer treated me coming out of the pandemic in 2021, I said, I'm done. I'm going to strike out on my own and be responsible for my own success and not have all of that in someone else's hands.
So many people really made that kind of decision. It's one of the reasons that I actually even created my E2E program was to cater to the people who decided, just like you, that it was about time to make a difference in their life. And I think it was a moment in history where a lot of people made some really big, dramatic decisions, probably to their benefit, which is
Hmm.
amazing. And you're
Yeah.
probably seeing it as you've been helping a lot of other people in this journey of theirs.
Yeah, absolutely. Big life-changing decisions. The idea that corporate jobs were stable and secure. I think in today's market post-pandemic, we see the layoffs daily on LinkedIn. We read about them in the news. Our parents and grandparents' idea of work for the same company for 40 years, get the pension, retire, that's not our reality now in 2025. And I heard a leadership speaker say one time, all of the most important decisions about your career will be made when you're not in the room.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't want that. I wanted to write my own story. And if I had a good revenue year or a bad revenue year, I wanted it to be because of me and what I did, not because the sales team missed the targets or the executives cleaned out the bonus plan to pay for something else. I wanted to be the author of my own story, and now I am. I've been doing this for 4.5 years at this point. And yeah, as you mentioned, now I'm getting to help some other independent consultants figure out that very tricky question of how do I actually get clients?
Yes, absolutely. We're going to go into that, but I want to ask you one more question before we
Uh-huh.
go there. I'm a big believer that not everybody was designed to be an entrepreneur, and that's completely great. We definitely need
Yes.
people who love their job and want to be. I'm not knocking being an employee at all and having a job
Right.
at all, ever. And you'll hear me say that all the time. But let me ask you, because I didn't have a plan B to be an entrepreneur while I was in my 18-year corporate life, and I doesn't
Uh-huh.
seem like you really did that either. So if you went back in time, what would you have done differently, even though you liked your corporate job and you were in your corporate career? What would you have done differently, or would you have done anything differently, knowing what?
Yeah, first, I just want to say I am not like you. I am not advocating a one size fits all plan for career and life. I like to say that independent consulting is not for everybody, but it is for anybody with a skill and a will. And not knocking corporate careers, big companies do a lot of amazing things, and that's the right choice for some people, and that's okay. But I do think that with the changes in the way that we work, there is a huge opportunity for independent consulting, both for people who want to choose this as a lifestyle and they've got the skill and they've got the will, also for companies who now, through virtual work in independent consulting, have access to world class talent for project based, interim, or fractional roles, short periods of time. And they don't have to look in their local job market and say, who are all the aerospace engineers with wind tunnel experience here in Colorado Springs? Oh, there aren't any. Do we have to make a full-time hire for this very specific thing? No, you don't. In fact, I've got a friend who's an independent consultant who is an aerospace engineer with some very specific wind tunnel experience, and that is a unique value proposition that her clients find very valuable. So to get to the second part of your question, I did a lot of entrepreneurial things during my corporate career. I actually began as a computer programmer. And in the early 2000s, before the iPhone, before smartphones, I had an online game that I created. And I would work from 9 to 6 in my computer programming job. I would come home and eat dinner, and I would work till midnight, 2 a.m. on my online game. And I did everything. I was the programmer, I was advertising, I was marketing, I was cybersecurity, I was customer service. I did everything, and it was overwhelming, and I burned out. And
Yeah.
so even though the company was profitable, even though I had a game that was beloved by players and I was making money on advertising revenue, covering all my own expenses and putting some extra money in my pocket, I burned out. And I was in my 20s and I didn't know any better. And so the advice I would give that 25-year-old guy was, number one, go find a business mentor, right? Because you're a computer programmer. Go find a business mentor and pay that person to teach you how to build a business.
Correct.
And secondly, outsource all that stuff you're not good at, right? Pay somebody to do customer service, pay somebody to do your advertising and your sales. If designing the game and writing the code is the thing that only you can do, you do that, and then build a support system around you to handle all that other stuff that's burning you out.
I cannot tell you, and I'm guilty of this too. I will be the first to admit, and it's why I coach differently now. That's probably one of the biggest misconceptions that as you become into the entrepreneurial spirit and world, people seem to think you need to do it all. And it feels like I shouldn't have to pay for a coach or a mentor. I shouldn't have to pay for someone to take care of these admin things. But the reality is, when you are an employee in a job, that's actually what your corporate structure looks like. You are not required to do every single role in your business. That's why they have the structure. Yet somehow, when we move into entrepreneurship, it's now you really become an employee of this entire entity as opposed to being a role and outsourcing what you need. I think it's such a valid point that you're making here. And what an insightful lesson what a great piece of advice.
How many of us go into Canva and pretend to be graphic designers? When I wanted an amazing looking website for Chicken Dinner Club, I hired a graphic designer.
Yeah.
And she had the skills, the experience, she knew the platform, and she did it a much better job than I ever could have done. And the amount I paid her, if I'm thinking about my own opportunity cost to try and figure out graphic design versus to be out there finding and serving clients, like it becomes a no-brainer decision. But you have to learn to think like a business owner, not, oh my gosh, I need a new website. Let me try and figure out WordPress.
Yes, absolutely. You're so accurate around that. But I want to hear about the Chicken Dinner Club. I want my audience to hear that. But talk to us before we get into that. But what was something you felt like you really had to relearn in this transition from where you were to where you are in light of what we've just talked about?
My biggest challenge, and the challenge for many of the independent consultants that I talk to, is finding clients. Whether you want to call it business development or sales, a lot of independent consultants don't like that word. I don't want to do sales.
Don't
That's
be
fine. Call it whatever you want. If you don't want to call it sales, call it business development or outreach, or make up your own word for it. But the fact of the matter is that no business exists without sales.
Correct.
And that was the number one challenge for me and for many of the independent consultants I talk to who are really good at client service and doing the thing that clients pay them to do. But as an independent consultant, you have to be just as good at winning the work. And so for me, that was a new skill I had to learn and practice and develop because unfortunately, when I quit my job and put it out there on LinkedIn that I was now an independent consultant and I had a company, the clients didn't come running. It
Shocking.
was a big surprise. And
Mhm.
in fact, it was worse than that because I was no longer a practitioner. Now I was a vendor. So the conference speaking invitations stopped immediately. In fact, now they want me to pay to speak at a conference because I'm a vendor. Buy a booth, we'll give you a speech, give us $10,000. And so that dried up. I did, my first client, I did get from LinkedIn. It was a referral from another consultant. We had engaged on LinkedIn. We'd interacted with each other's content. When she got a project that she didn't have capacity to do, she referred me. And that's how I got my first client from someone I had never met in person, right?
Amazing. I
All
love
through LinkedIn.
that.
But after that, I really struggled. And the first 18 months or so, most of my revenue was subcontracting for other firms. So they were making a 40 to 50% markup on my rate. I was using my intellectual property to build their companies and their brand. And I was really at the mercy of their sales teams and their need for something I could do. And so it was some really lean days and hard work. And then finally in 2023, one of those long term projects had an 11-month engagement that kind of ended abruptly because the company was being bought by private equity and they had to slash budgets and make all the financial reports look good for the transaction. When I was out there with no pipeline, no clients, because I had relied too much on other people and other firms. And then you hit that entrepreneur's choice once again, go back and get a job or double down on yourself.
Correct. It's that roller coaster cycle that we talk about all the time.
You can get off the roller coaster or you can take another trip around. And so far, I have always chosen to take another trip around. And that meant reinvesting in me and building, we're going to call it sales, building that sales skill
Yeah.
for how to actually walk a client from the initial call to the signed contract. And there's marketing, there's your website, your content, your webinars, your speeches, all the stuff you put on LinkedIn. It's kind of like the turbocharger for the engine, but sales is the engine that makes the car go. So when all that stuff works and somebody calls up and says, yeah, Dave, tell me about your customer journey mapping. That's what I do as a consultant. You have to have that process. Otherwise, you end up in the buyer's process because every buyer has a process and it looks like this. First, they act interested. Then they gather information. Oh, how does that work? How much does it cost? What does it look like? What do I get at the end? Then step 3 for the buyer's process, they withhold information. I don't know. We're just exploring the market. I'm not sure what the budget is. I've got to talk to Janet. She's really leading this. I'm just gathering information. And then step 4 of the buyer's process is they disappear. And we can't, as independent consultants especially, we can't afford to live in that uncertainty of the buyer's process. And in fact, it doesn't serve our buyers. We serve our clients best as the experts by stepping forward and saying, this is what happens, right? First, we're going to do this. And then we're going to do this. And then if we both decide there's value in continuing the conversation, then we're going to do this other thing, step 3.
Right.
And when you, as an expert, control that buying process, then great things happen. And then you can actually create a buying experience where your clients have fun interacting with you and uncovering the next step and designing what this is going to look like. And they're trusting in you and your confidence to lead them through this process.
And that's an unbelievably incredible different mindset shift. And if you've been an employee, probably everything that Dave has just said to you is likely blowing your mind because as an employee, and think for the most part, you have been on the buyer side. And that includes things like buying a car, buying a house, buying an appliance. Think about buying clothes, going in and buying shoes, like literally anything, even if it's on Amazon and you've gone to buy something, you have followed that process. You are accustomed to it because that's what you do. And now Dave's just blown your mind because you're on the other side of it and you're still following a pattern you're very familiar with. And now you've got to change the game. And I think one of the biggest things that Dave just said, and hopefully you picked up on this nugget, isn't, I use the word mindset because it is a mindset, but it is in having confidence in yourself to be able to shift that entire pattern. I think that's probably one of the biggest things I have seen and I've experienced from that transition from employee to that self-employed entrepreneurial world is having the confidence to control the narrative, to control the experience, to control the process where you feel like I got this. And most of the time we don't got this. And we don't got this because we're in this of a roller coaster where most of the time we're sitting down here in this, oh my God, what a dumb idea. I shouldn't have done this. Why am I here? How do you have confidence when you're sitting down in the, maybe I should just get a job. This is a dumb idea. I should just go back to what I was doing.
Yeah. That mindset work is so critical.
So
So
critical.
critical.
So let's
Yeah.
talk about your, I feel this is a really good segue into your chicken dinner club. Let's talk a little bit about that. First of all, chicken, little chicken, tell me about how we got the name chicken dinner. That I have to know first. I'm sure everybody wants to know that. But before you answer that question, we want people to stick around so you can answer that one a little bit later. Why don't you
Okay.
describe what it is and then you'll give us the reason why it's called what it's called.
It is an online learning community for independent consultants who need to find more clients.
Okay.
And so let's unpack that a little bit. Online, it happens through virtual meetings and our web-based community platform where we exchange messages and do posts and everything, private online community. Learning community means that there is training involved. There are 2 training sessions a month where I teach a sales or marketing concept based on my own experience as a guy who's out there doing this now. Not, oh, I did this 10 years ago and let me tell you how to do it, or I'm going to teach you the theory and you apply it. No, I'm out there doing this because this is how I feed my family as an independent consultant. So 2 online trainings a month and then 2 office hours, open Q&A, networking. We'll talk about anything related to independent consulting from paying taxes and tax deductions to creative writing techniques to make your posts stand out in a world of AI generated content, anything that's going to help independent consultants grow their business. And then all of the past trainings are recorded. So we have this growing archive of past trainings that build on each other and complement each other. So you could watch the independent consultant sales cycle, right? That's our process. So we don't get caught in that buyer process.
Right.
Step one's the intro call. Guess what? We've got a training on mastering the intro call. What are the 4 components that must happen in the intro call? What do you say at the beginning? What do you say at the end? What are the outcomes you're going for? Guess what? You're not getting a signed contract in the intro call. It can
Right.
happen if you're
Yeah.
paying attention in certain circumstances, but that's generally not the goal. So, Chicken Dinner Club is an online learning community for independent consultants. We all support each other. There's a celebration section where we celebrate each other's wins, and we're growing slowly and building that community and that camaraderie and cheering each other on, helping each other succeed.
I love it. I love it. That what a great community. What a great place to actually, if you're working to be in that independent consulting place, because it can be really lonely for those
Hmm.
people who are used to going into a job and you've got your coworkers and you have someone to call. Suddenly, when you're independent and on your own, it can feel extremely lonely. So, joining a community, joining mentorship can often change anything. And also, I find it minimizes that roller coaster. You're going to have the roller
Hmm.
coaster. The idea is not to
Right.
have the behemoths of the highs and lows, but to have them minimize. And in my experience, the only real way is support.
Yeah, that community aspect is so important. One of my mentors, Liz Steble, she runs Professional Independent Consultants of America. She always says just because you're independent doesn't mean you have to go it alone.
Absolutely. Absolutely, for sure. What is one question that you wish more people would ask you?
Oh man, I am really passionate, and this will be funny because my background is computer science as a computer programmer, but also a musician. I do have a big creative part to me. I have spent a ton of time and effort and, yes, money in the last 4 years learning creative writing techniques.
Mhm.
And I use this in my content, in my free newsletter, my LinkedIn posts, just little tips and tricks that AI is not going to be able to do. And I wish more people would ask me about that. I think people just like subconsciously notice, oh man, I love your content. That made me laugh. That made me smile. But they don't notice that I'm using intentional techniques that I learned and practiced, and they can too, to do the same thing. So that's one thing I would love for someone to ask me or to be able to talk more about.
That's fantastic. I love that. And I think that's probably such an underrated component of people's lives, of people having this amazing hobby or inner talent and either feeling like they can't incorporate it into their world or it does need to stay so separate. But that's artistic creative side. And you said you're a musician as well. And one would say, oh, how does a musician and being an artist help you with being an entrepreneur? But it's the creativity. And quite honestly, entrepreneurship is a huge amount of creativity. It's
Yes.
outside of the box. It's thinking it not as a science, but as the art
Hmm.
and being able to stand out compared to anybody else that you're with, because we all compete with other people. There's so
Absolutely.
many out there now.
Yeah. And a couple of thoughts I had is one, just because it's a hobby and you love doing it doesn't mean it should be a business. That's a great way to kill your hobbies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%.
But the second thought I had is for my consulting business, I was doing a monthly LinkedIn live show. And that was a way to express my ideas on this customer experience topic that I consult on to bring people into my orbit. Great marketing tool. And because I'm a musician, and you can't see it because of my fake background, but I'm sitting in a recording studio in my basement right here, right now.
Right.
Because I'm a musician, I composed and recorded my own intro music for my LinkedIn live show. And
Fabulous.
yeah, and it was weird and it was quirky and it was me and it supported the show and it just elevated it just one notch
Right.
above from your standard LinkedIn live show or your standard podcast. I don't know where podcasters get music. I assume there's an oversaturated market of people trying to sell podcast intro songs for $10 and meanwhile they're living in a cardboard box
Yeah.
because $10 is nothing. I'm sure that there's a saturated market out there for that. I'm not trying to do that, but I did find a way to take my creativity and my hobby because I'm not a professional musician anymore. That was another thing back in my 20s and 30s. But I found a way to take my creativity and my hobby and just use it to differentiate my business just one more notch a little bit higher. And I got great feedback for the LinkedIn live show.
That's amazing. It's funny that you say that because so I became an actor about 7, 8 years ago, networking, and I met a talent scout. And so this was an accident. I'm not trained in it. It was very fluky, quite honestly, but it's definitely a little more than a hobby, but it's not my primary path. But I will say that it is somehow miraculously been so incredibly intertwined with what I do because when you're an actor, you put on a character and you
Right.
go forward. And whatever you're doing, you are not you. You're supposed to bring out parts of your personality, but you are not you. You play a character and you do your best in that moment to play something else. And even in my entrepreneurial journey, the one lesson that I realized by going down this path, this very artistic path, compared to what I do in my day-to-day entrepreneurial sales life and coaching life, is that there are days where I'm just not in the mood. Like I've had life
That's
happen,
so real.
I've had crap happen, I've had a whole bunch, and then I will be on Zoom 10 minutes later. I will be on stage 10 minutes later, and I now have to put on that mask. I've got to be that role, and I have to go out there and do my thing for everybody else. And then I get to come back and go into a puddle of crumbleness. But I couldn't quite in the beginning understand because everyone's, oh my gosh, you're an actor and you're this and they're so different. And yes, of course they're different. But I will say that the skill set, because you can always find a piece of whatever you're doing and how can you interlay it. And so, to your point, if you've got a great hobby, what is it within that hobby that you can take? What is either the lesson or the skill that you can take and really bring it out into what you're doing? I
Mhm.
love that you did your own intro music. I love that
Yeah.
you did your own artistic side. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal.
We are all such beautifully complex human beings, and traditional work has required us to show up a certain way and to have professional distance and all of the things. And a lot of that is still important, right? Like when you're meeting with a client, you've got to just put all the other stuff on a shelf, serve the client to the best of your ability, and then you can pick all that other stuff back when the Zoom's over. But there's a bit more freedom that we have as entrepreneurs. Look at Jesse Cole, the Savannah Bananas guy, the guy in the yellow tux with they're not even minor league, but the baseball team that's just like selling out a stadium in a time when baseball as a sport is really floundering in the
Yeah.
United States. And it's because he and his team, they just put themselves in it, their personality, their passions, their
Right.
right. Doesn't mean it's not hard work, but we get that opportunity as entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How do you define success? Because for you and I that lived in the corporate world, success tends to be defined for us, right? The next rank level, and the next promotion, the next raise, maybe a lateral or an up move. But now, how do you define success and what does that mean? And how would you know you got there?
Success for me is independence. And I did the corporate thing with the six-figure salary. I had the two-seater Mercedes convertible that I spent 2 hours a day in, inching along the freeway on my commute. Since becoming an entrepreneur, I work from home. I had lunch with my kids today. And like they had made potions this morning, and they were so excited when I went up for lunch to show me their potions. We moved last year, just over a year ago. My wife and I, it's time for us to get out of Texas, to get out of the big city. Where do we want to go? Because my business is portable, it's all virtual. And so we looked at the entire United States and we considered school systems and proximity to family and where could we get that outdoor lifestyle that we like so much. And so we packed up and moved at our own expense to Colorado Springs. And we made a home here. We've got a beautiful view of the mountains. Our kids are thriving in their new schools.
It's
This year alone, my kids are collecting those Junior Ranger badges. They also get them at national monuments and all the stuff. So on our vacation 2 weeks ago, they came home with 8 Junior Ranger badges. And we're not dependent on this false security of a corporate salary. We're not dependent on promotions and bonuses and somebody in the sales department from landing the big client so that we can get this. And that for me is success, is being as independent as I can from other people and other entities and getting to design our own life.
uh, I love it. All right, now our audience has waited long enough. You have to tell them this name, why this name, what is the backstory to this name of your club, Chicken Dinner.
I'll take the long winded answer. I'll try and keep it short. When I started my consulting business in 2021 and I knew nothing about branding and marketing and any of that, I chose the very unique name Seaton CX because Seaton is my last name and CX was what I do or is what I do in that other business. Since then, over the last 4 years, I just things should be fun. When there's an opportunity for things to be fun, they should be fun. And like that Jesse Cole guy, the Savannah Bananas guy, his book is called Find Your Yellow Tux. And it's about how do you create something that's you and that's different and it gives you joy. And early iterations of this, I was like the Independent Consultant Sales Club or names like that. And I woke up one morning and that phrase, maybe we had watched like Bringing Down the House movie, maybe it's called 21 or Ocean's 11 or something. I woke up one morning and the phrase winter chicken dinner was in my head.
Right.
And I told my wife, I'm like, I think I'm going to call it chicken dinner. And she was like, I don't think you should do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I like it makes me laugh. And so I thought about it, iterated on it, riffed on it, and I took chicken dinner from Winter Chicken Dinner and the idea of a dinner club, which is community and networking and relationships. And so you have Chicken Dinner Club,
Got it.
and that's it.
What a great name. And you're right. It makes you laugh. It makes you think you. And the best of anything is always, it should spark a, huh? And you want to ask more questions. And that's all, honestly, that's what sales is. It's the process of getting someone to be, as I call it, confused, that they're like, I need to learn more. That's what we're looking for, is to be able to educate you with more.
And if somebody is so buttoned down that they can't imagine themselves ever joining Chicken Dinner Club, then they're not the right person for
Correct.
the.
Correct. And not everything is for everybody, but
That's right.
you're going to create a group of like-minded, intentional people who will then really be able to feed off of each other. Yes, using the word feed as a pun there. Feed off of each other. But that's what you want. And we've talked about this before of one of the hardest things of being an independent entrepreneur is feeling independent. And so find a group, find a community, and if they're not your people, move on.
Yeah.
Find another one. And if this is the community that you would love to learn about and be part of, please, all of this information will be in the show notes. Just reach out to Dave, meet with him,
Yeah.
join the club, go and check it out. I know that, for our audience, you're happy to have people come and explore and see if it's something that makes sense for them.
They can get a 14-day free trial right on the website or send me an email. I'll give you a day pass. You can come to a training. You don't have to input your credit card or any of that stuff. Come check it out. See if it's right for you. Maybe you like us, maybe you don't. That's okay. I think, a good brand, any good brand should be like a magnet. It should attract the people that are a good fit. It should repel the people who are not a good fit.
Absolutely. So as we close out, I'd love to hear what is something you're the most excited about in the near future? What's coming up for you that we should know about?
Oh gosh, we just did all of our big vacations. I am really excited this Thursday for Chicken Dinner Club. We're doing something a little bit different. So instead of the hour-long interactive training, we're having an outreach party. And the way it works is we're going to get together for 15 minutes. We're going to look at 3 outreach strategies because we all know we've got that nagging to-do list of outreach. We know we need to do, but we don't know what to say, so we don't do anything. So we're going to put an end to that this Thursday. By the time your listeners watch this, will already be done, but we'll do another one if people like it. We're going to meet for 15 minutes. We're going to look at 3 strategies: how to reach out to a new connection on LinkedIn you've never talked to, but you might like to, how to reach out to someone in your network that you've been connected to for months, years maybe, but have never talked to about consulting and your business, and how to reach out to somebody you've talked to in the last 3 to 6 months, either a past client or they kind of acted interested, but they didn't become a client, or you met them on a networking event and you know you need to follow up, but you don't know what to say. We'll look at that. Then for 45 minutes, we'll go do it. We're going to actually do the work. And then the last 15 minutes, we're going to come back and talk about how it went, and we're going to keep score. And you'll get 1 point if you get a response. Somebody responds to your message.
Yeah.
You'll get 2 points if you get a no, because we celebrate no's,
Right.
because that is a clear next step. We're done. We got a no. We have an answer. So you get 2 points for that. You book a meeting, you get 5 points. So we'll tally scores and pat everybody, each other on the back, and we will have done that big, onerous, nasty task that we know we need to do, but we never do it because we don't know what to say.
Phenomenal. I love it. Dave, thank you so much for being here, sharing your wisdom, sharing so many incredible nuggets. I look forward to having everybody hear this and get in touch with you. And hopefully it will help grow your community because this audience really resonates with you. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure to just get on here and chat. I can't believe it went so quickly. You're an amazing host. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks for watching. Hopefully you were inspired just as I was by our amazing guest. Please subscribe because every week we will be interviewing someone else who's made that transition from employee to entrepreneur. In the comments, please share the one nugget that you heard that will change your business as well.